The harsh, sterile light of the airport terminal seemed to mock Nabi as she stood frozen, her small suitcase feeling impossibly heavy in her hand. All around her, people rushed past, families laughing, couples holding hands, friends embarking on adventures. They were living in a world of happy arrivals and heartfelt goodbyes, a world that had just crumbled for her. Her eyes were fixed on the phone screen, the words glowing with a cruel finality. Sorry, this event is for family only. The message was from Hano, her brother. Not just her brother, but the boy she had raised as her own son when their world was shattered by their parents' death. A hot blur of tears filled her eyes, distorting the flight information board into a meaningless smear of colors. She had poured every last bit of her savings into a wedding gift for him. A beautiful watch she knew he wanted, believing that this grand day would finally be a celebration for them both. A celebration of how far they had come. Instead, with a few careless words, he had told her she was an outsider, that she didn't belong to the very family she had single-handedly held together. A hollow ache spread through her chest, so profound it stole her breath. With a resolve born from the deepest pain, Nabi turned away from her intended gate, walked to the nearest ticket counter, and boarded the next flight to anywhere. She was determined to vanish, to let the world swallow her whole, but she had no idea that in just a few days, her quiet disappearance would ignite a story so powerful it would echo across the globe, a story that would make Hano regret every single letter he had so coldly sent. When Nabi was just 19, her life was cleaved in two: a late-night phone call, a horrifying screech of tires replayed by a grim-faced police officer. And just like that, her parents were gone. The car accident didn't just take their lives, it took her youth, her dreams, and her future. She was left with nothing but a silent house and her 10-year-old brother, Hano, whose big, terrified eyes looked to her for answers she didn't have. From that night on, she was no longer just a sister, she became his mother, his father, his shield against the world. Her own dreams of attending university to study photography were carefully packed away in a box and pushed under her bed, gathering dust along with her teenage hopes. Life became a relentless cycle of survival. She woke before the sun painted the sky, her hands raw from stocking shelves at the local shop. When the sun set, she would travel to the other side of town to clean cold, empty offices, her body aching with a fatigue that settled deep in her bones. She sold her mother's precious jewelry, piece by piece, the gold and gems turning into school fees, textbooks, and new shoes for Hano. There were nights she'd go to bed with her stomach growling, having given him her share of the meal, telling him she wasn't hungry. She never complained, not once. The bright, innocent smile on Hano's face was her fuel. That smile was worth more than any dream she had sacrificed. She was his shadow at every school event, her applause the loudest in the auditorium when he won an award, her prayers the most fervent every single night before she collapsed into bed. Years melted away in this rhythm of sacrifice and love. When Hano graduated from university with a degree in architecture, his cap thrown high in the air, Nabi felt a pride so fierce it brought tears to her eyes. All her hard work, all the lonely nights and empty plates, it had all been worth it. She didn't mind her simple, quiet life. His success was her success. She would tell anyone who would listen about her brilliant brother, the architect who was going to build beautiful things. But then, slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, things began to change. The change had a name, Mela. When Hano met Mela, a beautiful and charming woman from a wealthy family, a subtle shift occurred. Mela never seemed to like how close Hano was to his sister. She would make small, slicing comments wrapped in a sweet smile, like, "You should really focus on your own future, Hano, not get dragged down by the past." And Hano, mesmerized by this new, shiny life, began to listen. The distance between him and Nabi grew into a chasm. He stopped visiting on Sundays. His phone calls became shorter, his replies to her messages delayed. When she offered him advice, the same advice he once clung to, he'd sigh and say she worried too much, that she didn't understand his new world. Still, Nabi's love was unconditional. She continued to be his support system, mending his expensive suits for free so he could save money, helping him plan surprise parties for Mela, and cooking his favorite meals to send to his fancy apartment on weekends. But a painful awareness began to dawn on her. Sometimes, when she looked at him across the dinner table during his rare visits, she saw a stranger. The little boy who used to cling to her during thunderstorms was gone, replaced by a man who seemed embarrassed by her simple clothes and calloused hands. A man who barely asked if she was okay. Nabi hid her hurt behind a constant, unwavering smile. "I'm so proud of you, Hano," she would say, her voice bright, while her heart felt like it was slowly cracking. She had spent her entire youth building him, brick by brick, into the man he had become. Only to find there was no room for her in the life she had built. The sacred bond that had been her reason for living was fraying. And no matter how tightly she held on, it was slipping through her fingers. She didn't know it yet, but the same profound love that had made her give everything was about to become the very reason. She would have to let it all go. As the date of Hano's wedding approached, the entire neighborhood was buzzing with an electric excitement. Nabi heard the whispers everywhere she went. At the market, women gossiped about the extravagant decorations being flown in from another city. In the shop, customers talked about the famous band that was hired to play and the five-star hotel where the reception would be held. They spoke of Mila's designer dress and the glamorous pre-wedding photos that were all over social media. Nabi would offer a polite, tight-lipped smile whenever someone brought it up, letting them assume she was deeply involved in the preparations. She pretended she already had her invitation, that it was sitting on her mantelpiece at home. But deep down, a cold seed of anxiety had taken root. Every day, she waited. She watched the mailman pass her street, her heart leaping with a desperate hope, only to sink again when he walked past her gate. She had already chosen a simple, elegant dress from her closet. She had even bought a small, heartfelt gift, a silver photo frame, which she had saved for months to afford. She imagined placing a picture of them as children inside it. Days bled into weeks, and still, nothing arrived. The silence from Hano was deafening. The mailbox remained empty, a constant, hollow reminder of her growing exclusion. Finally, when the anxiety became a physical weight she could no longer carry, she gathered her courage and called him. Her hand trembled as she held the phone to her ear. "Hono," she began, her voice barely a whisper. "I was just wondering, when should I expect the invitation?" There was a long, heavy pause on the other end of the line. For a moment, she thought he had hung up. Then, he finally replied, his voice soft but strangely detached. "You'll get it soon, Nabi. Don't worry about it." His words were like ice. There was no warmth, no excitement, no brotherly love. It was the voice of someone making a business call, not talking to the sister who raised him. Nabi wanted to scream, to ask him why he was being so cold, but she couldn't. She just clung to his empty promise, telling herself he was just stressed with the wedding plans. It had to be a simple delay. The night before the wedding, Nabi's hope, against all odds, was still flickering. She spent the evening ironing her dress, the one she still planned to wear. She hummed a small tune, imagining herself sitting in the front row, her heart swelling with pride as she watched the little boy she raised begin his new life. Just then, her phone buzzed on the table. Her heart leaped. Maybe it was a message with the venue details, a last-minute instruction. She picked it up, a smile already forming on her lips. But as her eyes scanned the screen, the smile vanished, and her world stopped turning. "Sorry, this event is for family only." The words didn't make sense. She read them again, and again. Her mind reeled, trying to process the message. Family only. Wasn't she his family? Wasn't she the only family he had left for so many years? A wave of nausea washed over her. Her knees buckled, and the phone slipped from her numb fingers, clattering onto the floor. A torrent of memories flooded her mind, each one a fresh stab to her heart. Feeding him her own dinner when they had little food, shielding him from the rain with her thin coat on the way to school, staying up all night, holding a cold compress to his forehead when he was sick with a fever. Every single sacrifice, every tear she shed in silence, every dream she had buried for his sake, all of it was erased, invalidated by one single, heartless text message. She sank to the floor and sat there for hours, surrounded by the crushing silence of her home. She couldn't cry. She couldn't move. Her chest felt constricted, her heart completely numb. It wasn't just a rejection from a wedding. It was a rejection from her entire life's purpose. It was a rejection from the only person she had ever truly called her family. And in the cold, dark silence of that night, Nabi finally understood a devastating truth. Sometimes, the very people you spend your life building up are the ones who will tear you down without ever looking back. The next morning, Nabi woke up to the sun streaming through her window, but her world felt drained of all color. Her eyes were swollen, and her heart was a hollow cavern in her chest. Her small house, once a sanctuary of memories, now felt like a prison. Every object was a painful reminder of a life that was no longer hers. The framed photo on the wall from Hano's graduation, his proud smile beaming next to hers. The worn-out armchair he used to sit in while she told him stories. An old, faded birthday card from him she had kept for years, with the words "to the best sister in the world" scrawled in a childish hand. She couldn't stay there a moment longer. The pain was suffocating, and every breath she took was a reminder that she had no one, that she belonged nowhere. Without a word to anyone, she pulled her old dusty suitcase from the top of the closet and began to pack. She took only a few changes of clothes. Her old camera that she hadn't touched in years, and the small bundle of emergency cash she had hidden away. She had no destination in mind. She just knew she had to run. Later that evening, the glow of her laptop screen illuminated her tear-streaked face. She scrolled through websites for last-minute flights, her fingers typing in random destinations. Anywhere far enough away to escape the ghost of her past life. Her eyes landed on one place, Zanzibar, a small island off the coast of Africa, known for its crystal blue waters and peaceful sunsets. It sounded like a world away from her pain. Without a second thought, she booked the one-way ticket. It was the most impulsive thing she had ever done. This was her first trip alone, her first time doing something purely for herself. She didn't tell a single soul where she was going. For once, she wasn't running towards someone to take care of them. She was running away to find herself. As she boarded the plane, she kept her head down, avoiding eye contact, feeling like a ghost moving through a world of the living. She tried to distract herself with an in-flight magazine, but the words were just a blur. The ache in her chest was a constant, heavy presence. Beside her sat an elderly woman with deep, kind eyes and a smile that seemed to hold a lifetime of wisdom. She introduced herself as Mama Dira. After a while, the woman gently touched her arm, having noticed Nabi trying to discreetly wipe away her tears. "My child," Mama Dira said, her voice soft and soothing. "Whatever is making your heart so heavy, you must let it go. You are not lost. You are simply being moved." Nabi looked at her, confused by her strange words. Mama Dira continued, her gaze steady and comforting. "Sometimes God removes people from your life because He's about to do something new. Sometimes He clears the table because He's preparing to serve you a feast. When people push you away, it is not rejection, it is redirection." Those words sank into Nabi's wounded heart like a healing balm. No one had ever spoken to her with such profound kindness. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, she took a deep, shuddering breath that actually filled her lungs. She didn't fully understand what the woman meant, but she felt a tiny, almost imperceptible shift inside her, a small flicker of light in the overwhelming darkness. When the plane finally landed, Nabi stepped out and was greeted by the warm, humid island air. The gentle sound of distant waves and the sweet scent of tropical flowers enveloped her. She looked up at the vast, open sky, and whispered to herself, "Maybe this is where I can start again." She had no plan, no friends, no idea what tomorrow would bring, but she had a tiny seed of faith. Faith that maybe, just maybe, Mama Dira was right. That sometimes the most devastating heartbreaks are just God's way of pushing you toward a destiny far greater than the one you had planned for yourself. In that moment, with the island breeze on her face, Nabi's new life had quietly, unknowingly, begun. Nabi spent her first few days in Zanzibar in a daze, wandering along the shoreline for hours. She let her bare feet sink into the warm, white sand, watching the turquoise waves endlessly crash and retreat. The rhythm of the ocean was calming, but the weight of Hano's betrayal was a heavy cloak she couldn't seem to shrug off. Every evening, she would find a secluded spot by the water, pull out her old camera, and lose herself in capturing the fiery sunsets and the silhouettes of children playing in the surf. Photography became her therapy, a way to breathe again. Through the camera's lens, she started to notice the beauty in the world again, the intricate patterns on a seashell, the vibrant colors of the fishing boats, the genuine laughter of strangers who didn't know her story. It was a world that kept moving forward, even when hers had come to a standstill. One evening, as she was framing a shot of the coral rocks against the setting sun, a calm voice spoke from behind her. "You have a good eye for stories." Nabi turned, startled, to see a tall, gentle-faced man holding a small notebook. He introduced himself as Enkay, a marine researcher who was on the island studying the local ecosystem. He gestured towards her camera with a warm smile. "You capture more than just a picture," he said. "You capture a feeling." It was the first real conversation she'd had in weeks, and something about his peaceful presence made her feel safe. Over the next few weeks, they found themselves meeting often. Sometimes by chance on the beach, and sometimes by quiet arrangement. Enkay was kind and patient. He never asked about her past, but instead asked about her pictures. He wanted to know what she saw, what she felt when she pressed the shutter. Slowly, cautiously, Nabi began to open up. She told him about her forgotten dream of studying photography, a passion she had buried long ago to raise her brother. Enkay listened with an intensity that made her feel truly seen. He never interrupted, never judged, just allowed her the space to let her story unfold. One day, as they sat watching the tide come in, He said something that resonated deep within her soul. You spent so long giving your light away to help someone else shine, Nabi, but it's time to let your own light out now. The world has been waiting to see it. His words stayed with her, replaying in her mind long after he was gone. He encouraged her to explore the island further, to not just take photos but to record videos, to talk to the local people and share their stories. The world doesn't need more perfection, he told her. It needs more voices like yours, voices that are honest and full of heart. Emboldened by his faith in her, she began to create a small portfolio of her work, stunning photographs and short, emotional video clips of island life. When she finally showed it all to Enkay, his eyes lit up with genuine excitement. This is rare, Nabi, he said, his voice full of conviction. You see the soul of a place, the heart of its people. A few days later, Enkay told her about a media company he occasionally worked with, a company that specialized in creating powerful documentaries about real human journeys. Without her knowing, he sent them a small sample of her work. The response was immediate and overwhelming. A producer from the company called her, his voice buzzing with enthusiasm. They were completely captivated by her raw, emotional storytelling and her unique visual style. They offered her a chance to collaborate with them on a new travel documentary series. Nabi stared at her phone in disbelief after the call ended. Her dreams, the ones she thought were dead and buried forever, were suddenly, miraculously, coming back to life. A stranger had seen the potential in her that she had long forgotten, and for the first time in years, a genuine smile spread across her face, a smile that wasn't for anyone else, but was entirely, completely for her. She was finally beginning to see her own worth. Nabi's new journey began without any fanfare. After accepting the offer from the media company, she started by creating small, personal travel videos and writing accompanying posts for a new blog she named Footprints of Hope. It felt right. She wanted her story to be a reminder that even after the most difficult storms, you can still leave beautiful footprints behind. Her writing was simple and direct, flowing straight from her heart. She wrote about the process of healing, the courage it takes to start over, and the strange, unexpected ways that pain can lead you to your true purpose. At first, her audience was small, just a handful of followers. But her honesty was magnetic. Story by story, post by post, her words began to resonate with people. Readers from all corners of the world started sharing her articles, leaving comments about how her writing had made them feel seen, how it had given them the courage to face their own struggles. Her photographs, vibrant with life and raw emotion, touched thousands of hearts. Within a year, Footprints of Hope had become one of the most beloved travel and lifestyle blogs on the internet. Her inbox was flooded with offers, major brands wanted to collaborate with her, and prestigious media outlets requested interviews. All of them curious about the mysterious woman whose words carried such profound emotional weight. Yet, even as her fame skyrocketed, Nabi remained fiercely private about her past. She never once mentioned Hano or the soul-crushing heartbreak that had propelled her onto this new path. When interviewers asked about her inspiration, she would simply smile and say, "Life is the greatest teacher, and its most important lessons often come through loss." She wasn't seeking revenge or pity, she was seeking peace. Her dignified silence gave her an aura of strength, and her unwavering kindness made her followers love her even more. Soon, the invitations evolved from online collaborations to real-world stages. She was asked to be a keynote speaker at international conferences, women's empowerment summits, and creative workshops. Standing in front of massive audiences, she spoke about resilience, the power of faith, and the difficult but necessary act of forgiveness. "You don't need to be perfect to be powerful," she would often say, her voice sometimes trembling with emotion but always clear and strong. "You just need to find the courage to keep moving, especially when you feel broken." Her message was universal. Letters and emails poured in from strangers across the globe, single mothers, orphans, people who had been betrayed by their own families, all of them thanking her for giving them a reason to believe in hope again. Nabi read every single message, often with tears in her eyes. Finally, understanding that her private pain had been transformed into a public purpose. What she had once thought was the tragic end of her story had become the beautiful beginning of countless others. Still, in quiet moments, she would sometimes wonder about Hano. Did he ever see her articles? Did he know about her success? Did a single shred of regret ever cross his mind? She never searched for his name, never tried to find out what had become of him. She had left his memory in the past, but fate, it seemed, had other plans. The same world that had so cruelly torn them apart was quietly weaving their paths back together, preparing for a reunion that no one could have ever predicted. While Nabi was discovering her light, Hano's world was steadily dimming. On the surface, his life after the wedding was a picture of success. He and Mela lived in a sprawling modern house, drove expensive cars, and took lavish vacations that they documented meticulously on social media. But behind the perfectly curated photos, the house was cold and empty, devoid of any real warmth or peace. Mela was not the loving partner Hano had imagined. She was a beautiful facade, her heart filled with a chilling combination of pride and materialism. She was obsessed with high society parties, designer labels, and maintaining their image online. She had no interest in building a real family or a deep connection with him. Whenever Hano tried to talk about their future, she would dismiss him with a wave of her hand, saying, "Let's just enjoy the moment, darling." At first, Hano chose to ignore the warning signs. He told himself she was just adjusting to married life. But as the months wore on, their home became a battleground of bitter arguments. Mela's parents were a constant presence, their feigned concern barely masking their greed. They manipulated Hano into investing in their failing business ventures and pressured him into buying them extravagant gifts. Whenever he hesitated, Mela would punish him with icy silence, making him feel guilty and small. His once healthy savings began to dwindle, but his pride was too great to admit to anyone that his perfect life was a sham. The breaking point came on their first wedding anniversary. Mela insisted on throwing a massive, ostentatious party, inviting the city's most influential people. The event was designed to be a spectacle, a public declaration of their flawless marriage, but beneath the clinking champagne glasses and forced smiles, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. That night, a guest who was a distant acquaintance of Mela's friend secretly recorded a conversation between Mela and her best friend in the powder room. In the recording, Mela's cruel laughter echoed as she said, "Do you honestly think I married him for love? Please. I married him for his status and his bank account. My family was struggling, and he was our golden ticket." The next morning, the voice note was leaked. It spread through their social circles like wildfire. Within hours, it was all anyone was talking about. Hano's phone began ringing off the hook. Friends, colleagues, and business partners calling to ask if the rumors were true. His world tilted on its axis as he listened to the recording himself. It was undeniably Mela's voice. Every word was a dagger twisting in his heart. The woman he had chosen over his own sister, the woman he had defended and adored, had been using him from the very beginning. The media latched onto the story. Gossip blogs and news sites published every sordid detail, turning his personal tragedy into public entertainment. People mocked him openly. Humiliated and exposed, his clients began to pull their contracts, fearing their association with his name would tarnish their own reputations. His architectural firm suffered catastrophic losses. Mela tried to deny it all, but the evidence was irrefutable. His fairy tale marriage had exploded, leaving nothing but ruin in its wake. Late one night, Hano sat alone in the vast silent house, the same house he once believed was the symbol of his happiness. As the profound loneliness pressed in on him, one single, agonizing thought echoed in the emptiness. The sister he had so cruelly pushed away was the only person in the world who had ever loved him unconditionally. Days blurred into weeks, and Hano's life became a study in isolation. The endless party invitations, the fawning attention, the fake friends, it all vanished overnight. His phone, once constantly buzzing, now remained silent for days on end. After the scandal, Mela had packed her designer bags and moved back in with her parents without a second glance. The house, which had once felt grand, now felt like a mausoleum, its empty rooms echoing his loneliness. He spent his days staring at the walls, consumed by a cycle of shame and regret, wondering how his life had unraveled so completely. One sleepless night, as he was aimlessly scrolling through social media, a video shared by an old acquaintance caught his eye. The caption read, "From abandonment to inspiration, the incredible story of Nabi." His heart stopped. The name felt like a ghost on his lips. With a hand that trembled uncontrollably, he tapped on the video. The screen lit up, and there she was, his sister. She was standing on a brightly lit stage, looking radiant in a simple white dress, a serene smile on her face. Her voice, calm and yet filled with an undeniable power, filled the silence of his room as she addressed a captivated audience of hundreds. "Sometimes," she said, her gaze sweeping over the crowd, "the people you sacrifice everything for are the ones who break you the most. But healing only begins when you stop asking why they hurt you, and you start thanking God for setting you free." Hono felt the air leave his lungs. He couldn't breathe, couldn't move. He turned up the volume, listening intently as she shared her story, a story of love, loss, forgiveness, and finding a new beginning. She never mentioned his name, but he knew. Every single word was about them. About him. Each sentence was a fresh reminder of the profound pain he had inflicted upon her. As she finished her speech, the entire auditorium rose to its feet in a thunderous standing ovation. He saw people in the audience openly weeping, moved and inspired by her strength. He scrolled down to the comments section below the video, a sea of praise and admiration. She is the most inspiring woman I have ever heard. Her words just healed a part of my heart I thought was broken forever. Nabi's story is proof that pain can be forged into purpose. Hano spent the rest of the night devouring every post, every photo, every video he could find. He saw her smiling with underprivileged children in remote villages, trekking through majestic mountains, accepting prestigious awards, and spreading her message of hope to the world. The same sister to whom he had sent the text, "This event is for family only," had become a woman the entire world was now embracing as their family. His vision blurred as hot, shameful tears streamed down his face. He leaned back, clutching his phone to his chest as if it were a lifeline. For the first time, he didn't see her as the simple, poor sister who had raised him. He saw her for who she truly was, a powerful, resilient, and magnificent woman. An all-consuming regret washed over him, filling every empty space in his soul. He hadn't just lost a sister. He had thrown away the only pure, unconditional love he had ever known. And in that dark, quiet moment of reckoning, he finally understood the true meaning of lost, a kind that no amount of money, success, or apologies could ever fix. Sleep became a stranger to Hano in the nights that followed. Every time he closed his eyes, he was haunted by the image of Nabi on that stage, her face calm, her spirit strong, her aura full of a light he had tried to extinguish. Her words replayed in his mind on an endless loop, each one a testament to her grace and his cruelty. The weight of his guilt was a physical burden, making it hard to breathe. He thought of all the times she had put his needs before her own. The worn-out shoes she kept wearing so he could have new ones. The countless sacrifices she had made without ever asking for a word of thanks. And then he would think of his own words, typed out in a moment of selfish pride. "Sorry, this event is for family only." That sentence now burned in his memory like a brand. He knew he had to do something, anything, to try and make things right, but he felt paralyzed. How could he possibly reach out to her? What could he say that could even begin to atone for the pain he had caused? He couldn't live with the crushing silence any longer. One evening, driven by a desperate need for redemption, he sat down in front of his laptop, opened the camera application, and pressed the record button. His hands shook as he took a deep, ragged breath. All the pride and arrogance had been stripped away from him, leaving only raw, unfiltered regret. "My name is Hano," he began, his voice quiet and hoarse, his eyes already glistening with unshed tears. "Many of you now know the name Nabi, the woman who inspires millions with her story of hope. But what you don't know is that I am the brother who broke her heart. I am the one who turned her away." His voice cracked, and he had to pause to compose himself. "When our parents died," he continued, "she gave up her entire life to raise me. She was my mother, my father, my everything. But when it was my turn to stand by her, to honor her, I failed. I let my ego and the influence of others blind me. I pushed away the only person who ever truly loved me." Tears now flowed freely down his face, and he made no attempt to wipe them away. "The woman you all call an inspiration was once the woman I called an outsider. I shattered her heart, and that is a truth I have to live with for the rest of my life. I know I don't deserve her forgiveness. I don't. But I needed the world to know the whole truth. She is the reason I am anything today, and I am so deeply ashamed that it took losing everything for me to finally see her worth." He ended the video with a choked whisper, his eyes looking directly into the lens as if he could see her through it. "Nabi, wherever you are, I am so sorry." He then uploaded the raw, unedited video to all his social media accounts, not expecting anyone to care. But the world did care. Within hours, the video exploded. It was shared, commented on, and reposted across every platform. People were stunned by his raw honesty and vulnerability. "This is the most powerful and sincere apology I have ever seen," one comment read. Thousands of users began tagging Nabi's official accounts, pleading with her to see it, to respond. News channels and major media outlets picked up the story, and soon, Hano's confession was global news. It trended for days under hashtags like #brother_quotes as apology and #forgive Hano. Millions of people watched, their hearts collectively holding their breath, waiting for the woman who had taught the world so much about healing to finally respond to the man who had caused her deepest wound. Weeks passed after Hano's video went viral, and the world was still captivated by their story. Every talk show, every news segment, and every online forum buzzed with the same question: would Nabi respond? But she remained silent. She continued her work with quiet dignity, traveling from one country to the next, speaking to packed auditoriums about forgiveness, resilience, and the power of finding peace within. Her silence was seen as a sign of incredible strength. But privately, Nabi's heart was in turmoil. She had forgiven Hano in her heart long ago, for her own peace. But seeing him, facing him, that was a different matter entirely. Then came the day of the Global Humanitarian Conference in Geneva, one of the most prestigious events of her career. The Grand Hall was filled to capacity with world leaders, journalists, and philanthropists. Thousands more were watching the live stream online. Nabi, looking ethereal in a simple white gown that symbolized peace, walked onto the stage to a wave of thunderous applause. She clutched her speech notes, ready to deliver her address on healing in the wake of personal tragedy. But as she reached the podium and looked out at the audience, her breath caught in her throat. There, sitting in the very first row, was Hano. He looked thinner, his face etched with a humility she had never seen before. He looked broken. Their eyes met across the crowded room, and in that instant, time seemed to stop. A hush fell over the entire hall. The air crackled with unspoken emotion. Nabi's hands, holding her notes, began to tremble. A lifetime of memories rushed back to her in a dizzying flood. The nights she helped him with his homework, the joy on his face when she bought him his first proper football, and the searing pain of his final, dismissive text. All of it swirled within her. Slowly, shakily, Hano rose to his feet. His eyes were filled with tears, but his voice, though trembling, was clear as it carried through the silent hall, picked up by the microphone on the podium. "I was blind," he said, his words a raw confession to the entire world. "You were always my family. You were my mother, my protector, my strength. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm here to ask for it anyway." His profound, public apology filled the room with a palpable wave of emotion. People in the audience were openly weeping. Nabi stood frozen for a moment, her own eyes glistening under the bright stage lights. The whole world was watching, waiting. Then, she did something no one expected. She set down her speech, stepped away from the podium, and walked down the stage steps. She moved toward him, slowly at first, and then with more certainty. When she finally reached him, she didn't say a single word. She simply opened her arms and hugged him. A collective gasp, followed by an eruption of applause, swept through the hall. Tears streamed down both their faces as they clung to each other. A silent exchange of forgiveness and a final letting go of years of pain. In that powerful, public embrace, two broken halves of a family were made whole again. Cameras flashed incessantly, capturing the moment for the world to see. Reporters would later call it the most emotional and powerful reunion of the year. Within minutes, clips of the hug went viral, shared by millions with captions like, "This is what true forgiveness looks like." Their story of pain, redemption, and unconditional love moved the entire world. On that day, in front of everyone, Nabi didn't just give a speech about forgiveness. She showed the world what it truly meant, and as Hano whispered, "Thank you" over and over into her shoulder, she closed her eyes and knew, with absolute certainty, that their hearts had finally, truly, healed. Months later, Nabi found herself back on the quiet, sun-drenched beach in Zanzibar where her new life had begun. It was the very same shore where she had once walked alone, her heart shattered by the words, "This event is for family only." But the woman standing there now was not the same broken person who had arrived seeking refuge. The waves that had once seemed to mock her sorrow now seemed to sing her story. Back to her a story of pain transformed into a global purpose. She stood barefoot on the sand, the setting sun casting a golden glow on the horizon. Her dedicated camera crew was setting up to film a segment for her new documentary series, a project funded by her foundation, which focused on giving orphaned children the chance to travel and see the world beyond their circumstances. All around her, a group of children from a local orphanage were laughing and playing, their joyous squeals filling the air as they chased the seagulls. Nabi watched them, a deep, profound sense of peace settling in her heart, the kind of peace she once believed was lost to her forever. The director gave a quiet signal, and, "We're rolling." The camera focused on her as she stood against the breathtaking backdrop of the ocean. Nabi looked directly into the lens, her smile soft and genuine, her hair dancing in the gentle sea breeze. "Sometimes," she said, her voice clear and steady, "pain is the plane ticket that takes you to your true purpose. Forgive. Not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace." Her words were imbued with the quiet authority of someone who had lived through the fire and emerged stronger. She knew, now, that forgiveness wasn't a weakness. It was the ultimate act of strength. It was the choice to release the bitterness that was weighing her down, so that her own soul could finally be free to fly. As she spoke, the entire crew fell silent, moved by the simple power of her truth. That short, unscripted clip was posted online that evening. It didn't just go viral, it became a global phenomenon. Millions of people watched Nabi on that beach, her calm voice and serene presence acting as a balm for wounded hearts everywhere. Comments poured in from people who had felt hurt, abandoned, and rejected, all thanking her for giving them hope. "You taught me how to let go," one person wrote. "You turned your heartbreak into a lighthouse for the rest of us," said another. News channels replayed the clip, hailing her as the woman who turned personal rejection into a global movement of inspiration. Her journey from a forgotten sister to an international humanitarian had become a modern-day fable, touching every corner of the world. Even Hano was a part of her new life, quietly working behind the scenes to support her foundation, his actions a testament to his changed heart. As the sun finally dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Nabi sat on the sand, watching the waves roll in. She thought of her younger self, the lost and lonely girl who felt invisible, and she whispered into the wind, "We made it." Her story was no longer just about pain and forgiveness. It had become undeniable proof that sometimes, the people who try to exclude you are, in fact, unknowingly setting you free to shine brighter than you ever could have imagined. As the camera slowly faded to black, Nabi's peaceful, knowing smile was the final, lasting image, the perfect symbol of a woman who had walked through the deepest darkness and found her own magnificent light.